The Leominster City Council meeting is funded in part by DeCarolis Insurance Agency at www.decarolisinsuranceagency.com and by Avidia Bank at www.avidiabank.com.
Thank you. Good evening. It is 6:30 p.m. We're going to start the evening with interviews. C-53, Council on Aging, term to expire 4/15/2027 for Karen Bask from 47 Laurie Drive, Apartment D in Leominster. I can report that Ms. Bask was unavailable for the interview tonight. She did submit a letter to the council, which I'm going to just read into the record now in light of her not being able to make it to the interview. It says, "Dear Leominster City Council members, my name is Karen Marie Arsenault Bask, and I would like to serve on the Council of Aging Board. I was born in Leominster on July 10, 1948, and have lived in Leominster all my life. I attended Leominster Public Schools and graduated from LHS in 1966. I finished 1 year at Fitchburg State, but could not continue after I developed a debilitating panic disorder. In December of 1967, I married and soon had 3 children. When my children started high school, my cousin and I started a small cleaning business, which I continued to do for 19 years. During those years, I was able to volunteer at St. Anna's Church for their CCD program. I also served on the Leominster Cultural Commission for 6 years, from 1998 to 2004. I began volunteering at the Leominster Senior Center in 2014, overseeing the cribbage group, which I still enjoy doing today. Since 2016, I also volunteer my time at Leominster's Benchmark Assisted Living Residence, teaching and assisting residents to play cribbage on Wednesday evenings. I hope you will consider me for the position on the Council of Aging Board. Thank you sincerely, Karen Bask." I just wanted to put that on the record in lieu of her not being able to make it for the interview. The second interview we have this evening comes under C-53 as well. Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests the appointment of the following on the Disability Commission, term to expire April 15th, 2027, is Laura Moust from White Pond Road in Leominster. Laura is here, and we're going to invite her to come up to the desk. Just make sure that microphone is on. Now. Thank you. Good evening, Laura. Again, my name is Pauline Cormier. I'm the chair of the Ways and Means Committee. The other members of my committee are Councillor Ardinger, normally to my left, and Councillor David Cormier, normally to my right. So I'm a party of one this evening. We want to welcome you, and I want to offer you the opportunity to tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us why you're interested in being a part of the Disability Commission.
All right. Well, I'm Laura. I was born and raised in Leominster, lived here for most of my life, a brief stint in South Dakota. Anyway, and I grew up with a visually impaired older sister, and I have watched her struggle to get the accommodations she needs her entire life. And she has since gone on to become an occupational therapist at Perkins School for the Deaf and Blind. So she's pretty inspirational to me, watching her sort of plow through any barrier that she needs to. And also just when she went to college, it was very interesting because it sort of sparked the college she went to have to look at their ADA requirements. And they had to update a lot of things because they hadn't had to at that point. And it sort of sparked a chain reaction of, she's visually impaired, but all of a sudden they're adding ramps and they're adding all these things that, doesn't necessarily affect just her, but it affects, the community as a whole, which is kind of an interesting experience. And then myself, in 2017, I had TBI, traumatic brain injury. So that has had me reevaluate my perspective on things, where it's always been, pretty central in my life because of my sister. Now it's every waking moment of mine also. When I was in high school and stuff, I was much more involved in the community. Growing up, I was in Girl Scouts, so we were all in every event ever. And then in high school, I was in marching band, National Honor Society, so on and so forth. And as I've sort of settled into adulthood, I've found that aside from my job at Go Farm, I'm sort of insular, and I would like to be more involved with, things that are important to me.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm I would normally open this up to see if there was any questions to the members of my committee, but I think we're just going to open it up to the city council in general. If anybody has any questions, any comments. Councillor Shalafo Zephyr.
Thank you very much. I don't really have any questions. I think that your introduction is really helpful, and certainly me understanding, why you'd be interested in the Disability Commission. So I just want to thank you very much for coming forward and for coming to, meet us all tonight. And I really appreciate you coming down.
Thanks. Any other councillors? Councillor Frida.
I've known Laura for quite a while through her employment at Goves and other areas, and she's just a remarkable person at Goves. The patience and the assistance to a lot of people, and there's sometimes a lot of elderly going in at the same time, and she's always been very helpful to those people as well. So I'm in support of her appointment.
Thank you. Any other councillors? Councillor Bedanza.
I just want to thank you, Laura, for stepping forward for this important job. And I think that your sister and my daughter were preschool friends.
I think so.
If I remember correctly. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, Laura, I want to thank you for sharing your story and your journey with us. I will ask the president later in this meeting if we can move this up on the agenda. But I know that you have an obligation this evening, so you don't have to stay. Feel free, and it's going to be my pleasure to recommend you for this appointment, and I'm sure it's going to pass without any problems. So you feel free to stay, but I know you made me aware that you do have some obligations. So thank you again for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want me to turn it off or leave it?
Okay, we have a little bit of a TV timeout before our next hearing. It'll start at 6:45 p.m. Okay, it is now 6:45, so we're going to start the hearing scheduled, and I'll turn this over to the Ward 5 Counselor and the Chairman of Legal Affairs, Counselor Angelini.
Thank you, Mr. President. Peter Angelini, Chairman of the Legal Affairs Committee, and joined this evening. The other two members of Legal Affairs, Ward 2 Counselor Pauline Cormier and Ward 1 Counselor Robert Tossi. This is a continuation of a public hearing on petition 25-24. Peter Angelini, Counselor Ward 5, requests to revise and amend Leominster's city ordinance by inserting a new section regarding short-term rental units. See attached. So this has been going on for quite some time. Actually, a petition was introduced on December 11th of 2023. As recently as this past Thursday, we received additional legal opinions from Brian Riley, the council's attorney, which raised some questions that certainly need further research and perhaps additional correspondence with Attorney Riley. But at this time, I have no further comment other than what was aforesaid. I'll go to other members, the other two members of my committee, starting with Councilor Pauline Cormier, to see if she'd like to weigh in on this.
I'm sorry. So this will be a move to get more time on this. Is that what we're doing? Oh yeah, yes. Then I agree. I have no further comment until we move this process a little further along.
I agree. Is there anyone in the council that would like to opine on this petition before I go to the public? In attendance this evening that would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 25-24? For the second time, is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak either in favor of or in opposition to petition 25-24? And for the third and final time, is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 25-24? Seeing none, I think we'll like to continue this hearing. If you could provide me with a date, Madam Clerk.
Oops, that's really loud today. April 22nd, 2024 at 6:50 p.m.
As I understand it, the unanimous recommendation of Legal Affairs, when we get to this in the agenda, to continue the public hearing and give the petition further time.
That's correct.
Councilor Frida?
Any further time, as I mentioned, we received an opinion from Brian Riley late Thursday afternoon. A rather lengthy opinion, requires additional research and perhaps correspondence with Attorney Riley to iron out a couple of the issues that he raised. So that's in fact why I'm asking for further time.
How much more research do we need to do? I thought his opinion was pretty clear.
Well, I did too. It was clear
It's
enough.
been going on for 3 months, and I think, we've had
We're not in session. I think the public hearing is concluded. If you want to debate this during the regular calendar, when further
Okay.
time is taken up, we can do that. Okay?
we'll do that. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you. And we have 1 more minute before we can start the 6:50 p.m. hearing.
What do you have against it?
Now have 6:50. magically. Mr. Chairman, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a public hearing of the Legal Affairs Committee, petition 41-24. This is Officer Julio Ramos, Leominster Police Department, requests to amend Chapter 13 of the revised ordinance entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Chapter 13, Section 13-24 of the revised ordinance entitled No Parking on Certain Streets by inserting the following text: Church Street, West Side, south of Miriam Avenue for 136 feet. Church Street, West Side, starting from 248 feet south from Miriam Avenue, ending at the intersection of Church Street and West Street. It's kind of interesting. I hadn't received the referral back from the DPW, so I went to see the city clerk today, and she was kind enough to reach out to the DPW. And on my arrival this evening, I was handed the referral, which I find quite confusing, I must admit. It's dated today, of course. Dear Caitlin, the Leominster Department of Public Works has reviewed the petition to amend Chapter 13 entitled No Parking on Certain Streets by inserting the following text: Church Street, West Side, south of Miriam Ave for 136 feet. Church Street, West Side, starting from 248 feet south from Miriam Avenue, ending at the intersection of Church Street and West Street, and offers the following comments. The DPW recommends the amending of Church Street parking south of Miriam Avenue, but the existing language regarding parking on Church Street, West Side, south of Miriam Avenue should be deleted. Let us know if you have any questions. Now, the reason this petition was before us actually a couple of weeks ago, and the DPW had sent out a referral asking for changes, which we asked. We forwarded those recommendations to Officer Ramos. Chief Kennedy responded that they were working on it. So I'm just kind of confused how we've arrived now at this sort of communication breakdown. So I'm gonna.
Clarity, may I ask, were the DPW recommendations, the original DPW recommendations, adopted by Officer Ramos in this petition?
Believe they were.
So this would be the second set of DPW recommendations.
Correct.
Okay. Just for clarity.
So I'm not sure if there was confusion.
Because the original petition had north and they wanted it to say south in both instances. So this is separate from that. So this is something above and beyond what they asked for originally.
Last minute, just get it tonight, so I had no way of following up and for the hearing. So anyway, I'll go to other members of my committee, but unfortunately, I don't think we're going to have enough information or clarity to address this evening, unfortunately.
So you're going to be looking for a continued public hearing at further time?
I'm afraid so. We may, Madam Clerk, would you please send emails out to Officer Ramos with a copy of the referral from DPW, and perhaps they can chat and resolve this internally before our next meeting. Councilor Cormier?
I think that's the only way to go. I think we need to get both parties together, straighten it out one way or another, and let us know. So I would agree with further time.
Councilor Tossi? I agree. Any members of the council would like to comment on petition? Yes. Could
you get a revised drawing of the?
Certainly.
Yeah.
Good idea. Anyone else? Go to the public. Is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 41-24? The second time, is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak either in favor of or in opposition to petition 21-24? For the third and final time, is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak either in favor of or in opposition to petition 41-24? Seeing none, I'm going to do the same thing. We'll keep this public hearing open until we get some clarification. So I'll be looking for further time.
Okay, so that'll be your report when we get in the regular meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is now 6:55. We can conduct the public forum. The public forum is an opportunity for any member of the audience to speak on a matter specifically listed on the council agenda. Speakers will be asked to come to the microphone and state their formal name and address, along with identifying the specific item they wish to address. Each speaker is respectfully asked to keep their comments within a 2-minute time frame. Council will not be responding or answering any questions. However, at the discretion of the council president, clarification may be given. No one has formally signed up for the public forum, but is there any member of the public that wishes to address the city council this evening on a matter on our agenda? For a second time, is there any member of the public that wishes to address the city council on an agenda item? Third and final time, is there any member of the public that wishes to address the city council on an agenda item? Seeing none, I'll declare the public forum closed. We'll open the public meeting shortly in about 4 minutes. I'll call the roll of councilors in attendance, starting with Councilor Pauline Cormier,
Present.
Councilor Thomas Ardinger, Councilor Angelini,
Present.
Councilor Tossi,
Present.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr,
Present.
Councilor Robbins,
Present.
and Councilor Frida.
Present.
And I am recorded as present. We have 8 city councilors present this evening. Does the chairwoman of records have a report?
I do, Mr. President. We have the minutes are ready for February 12th, 2024, February 26th, 2024, March 11, 2024, and March 25th of 2024. I'd ask that they found to be in good order and ask that they be placed on file.
That may be done unless there's any objection. Councilor Frida.
No objection, just a question. I contacted the clerk on one of the sets, and I know you said you were correcting them accordingly.
Mhm.
I never saw the end result, but I'm assuming they're.
I sent them out last week with the updates,
I didn't
an
see
email.
that.
I will check to see why it didn't go through,
No,
but I did.
making sure that they were changed.
Yes.
Thank you, Councilor. I will now go on to communications from the mayor, starting with C57.
C57, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that the City Council transfer the care, custody, and control of the parcels of land described below from the board or officer currently having custody thereof for the purposes for which said parcels are presently held, including, without limitation, for right-of-way purposes, which parcels are hereby declared surplus to the mayor for the purpose of conveyance, and further to authorize the mayor to convey the parcels of land located on the northerly side of Bassett Street, Leominster, shown as parcel A 41, 593 square feet plus or minus, and parcel B 12, 258 square feet plus or minus, on a plan of land entitled Plan of Land in Leominster, Mass, owned by the City of Leominster, dated March 21st, 2024, prepared by Haley Ward, Inc., and described in deeds recorded with the Worcester South District Registry of Deeds in Book 507, page 89, and Book 923, page 18-22, on such terms and conditions as the mayor deems in the best interest of the city, and further to authorize the mayor to enter into any, all agreements and execute any and all documents as may be necessary or convenient to effect said conveyance.
C57 is referred to the chairman of City Property Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Some on the count.
Councilor Frida.
Yes, along with that, through the chair, I'd like to get a copy of the plan that was prepared by Haley Ward in March, just recently. So if we get a copy of that plan as well. And, it appears that we need, I would suspect, we need an amendment to this because it would not be a Worcester South registry, it would be Worcester North registry.
It could be, well, wait a minute. So we're talking about a plan that was recorded in book 507, page 89. Might be right. I'm not sure though. It could be an old plan.
Why would we have, it wouldn't be in the South registry unless it was
It could,
extremely old. but
Right.
I can't
right.
imagine it's that old. I mean, that's the
Well,
Lassie League.
right.
Lassie League field here.
We'll investigate. We'll double check that.
Check anyway, but I'd be 99% sure it's worth the one.
All right, so C57 is given regular course with a referral to the mayor and a request for a map and a copy of the Haley Ward plan. Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Thank you very much. Through the chair to the councilor at large across from me. So also, in addition to the plan, could you ask the mayor for an explanation? I just don't know what this is all about and what it's.
We will refer it to the mayor. That's what he's going to send us, an explanation.
I hope so, but in the event that he doesn't, that I would like an explanation as to what it's for. Thank you.
All right, anything further? We'll move on to C58.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requested an appropriation of $6,000 be made to the City Council advertising account, the same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund.
C58 is referred to the chairwoman of finance.
Regular course, please.
Very well, C58 may be given regular course. Moving on to C59.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requested an appropriation of $250,000 be made to the Police Department Public Safety Overtime account, the same to be transferred from the Excess and Deficiency account.
C59 is referred to the chairwoman of finance.
First time on the agenda, regular course, please.
Thank you. C59 may be given regular course. Moving on to reappointments.
C60, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests the reappointment of the following: Leominster Culture Commission, term to expire 4/15/2027. Caitlin Montana, 108 Adams Street, Apartment 118. License Commission, term to expire 4/15/2030. James J. Kelly Jr., 312 Grant Street.
C60 is referred to the Chairwoman of Ways and Means.
Thank you, Mr. President, regular course.
60 may be given regular course. Moving on to C61.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that the City Council support the attached friendly eminent domain taking for the Pier Street property. The council voted in December to appropriate the funds to purchase the property, for which we would be reimbursed $500,000 of the total cost through a state grant. As you know, last year, this property was approved as a subdivision, which is what our appraisal is based on. The subdivision approval is not yet reflected in our assessors database. The 3 preceding years' tax assessment is $499,000, which means the city cannot purchase the property for more than 25% of the value. Since the city is paying $875,000, the appraised value, KP Law recommends that the council approve an eminent domain taking.
C61 is referred to the Chairman of City Property.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, C61 is be given regular course with a referral from the mayor to the mayor's office. Moving on to C62.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that an appropriation of $5,062 be made to the City Council advertising account, the same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account.
C62 is referred to the Chairwoman of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. First time on the agenda, regular course, please.
Very well. C62 has been given regular course. Moving on to C63.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that an appropriation of $15,000 be made to the collector's printing and postage account, the same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account.
C63 is referred to the Chairwoman of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Regular course, please.
Very well. C63 has been given regular course. Moving on to petitions, first time on the agenda, starting with 42-24.
Eco ATM LLC requests to renew license at 11 Jungle Road, Leominster, Mass.
42-24 is referred to the Chairwoman of Ways and Means.
Regular course, please, Mr. President.
42-24 has been given regular course. Moving on to 43-24.
Christopher Rivard, 28 Arch Street, Douglas, Mass. requests to renew transient vendor license with the City of Leominster.
43-24 is referred to the Chairwoman of Ways and Means.
Thank you, Mr. President. Regular course.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. 43-24 has been given regular course. Moving on to 44. I'm sorry, Councilor Frida.
It's okay. I'm just curious. Why is that 2/3 vote?
That's I would suspect.
I will adjust that. Thank you. Correct.
Moving on to 44-24.
Peter A. Angelini, Ward 5 Councilor, requests to amend the City of Leominster zoning ordinance by inserting the following text under definitions: short-term rental, with S in parentheses, the use of a residential unit for residential occupancy by a person or persons for a period fewer than 31 consecutive calendar days for a fee. A short-term rental may or may not be arranged through a booking agent. And also by inserting the following text under the table of uses: short-term rental shall be prohibited in Residence A.
44-24 is referred to the Chairman of Legal Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. President. Regular course and first time on our agenda with referrals to the Building Commissioner, Health Director, Police, Fire, Planning Board. And it appears that we have a public hearing scheduled for May 13th, 2024 at 6:50 p.m. Madam Clerk, am I correct?
Right, so 44-24 has been given regular course with referrals to the Building Commissioner, the Health Department, the Police Department, the Fire Department, the Planning Board, and we need to establish a public hearing date for May 13th, 2024 at 6:50 p.m. All those in favor of establishing that public hearing, please recognize in the usual manner. Anyone opposed? By a vote of 8-0, the public hearing is established. Moving on to matters before the City Council, starting with the financial report. Is the Chairwoman ready to report?
Yeah, Mr. President, thank you. We started this fiscal year with a balance of $21,785,513.54. We've had appropriations to increase stabilization and interest earnings in the amount of $4,115,600 and $600.60 for a balance of $26,278,424.94. With the money that we have spent to date, C-12 through C-44, we've spent $4,365,600 with an ending balance of $21,912,824.94. That is the financial report.
Very well. Thank you. We'll now move on to matters before finance, starting with C48. Is the chairwoman ready to report?
I am, Mr. President. C48, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that an appropriation of $100,000 be made to the Gallagher Building Maintenance line, the same to be transferred from the Gallagher Building Revolving Fund. This is to pay for required upgrades and maintenance. This matter was given regular course on the last date. Just make sure if we had any additional correspondence on this. I don't see any additional correspondence on C-48, but again, this is the Gallagher building. This is maintenance that we must maintain to keep this money in there. It would be my request that we grant the $100,000, and I'd ask you to check with members of my committee.
Very well. Councilor Angelini?
I'm in agreement.
You heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-48. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-48, please recognize in the usual manner. C-48 is granted by a vote of 8-0. Does the chairwoman have an order?
I do, Mr. President. Ordered that Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, ordered that the appropriation of $100,000 be made to the Gallagher Building Maintenance line, the same to be transferred from the Gallagher Building Revolving Fund. This is to pay for the continued upgrades and maintenance that are needed. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the order, please say yay. Yay. Anyone opposed? By a vote of 8-0, the order has been adopted. Moving on to C-49. Is the chairwoman ready to report?
I am, Mr. President. C-49, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that an appropriation of $50,000 be made to the library's operating account, the same amount to be transferred from the library's state aid to the public library account. This matter was given regular course on March 25th. Received a letter from the Leominster Public Library. Dear Mayor Mazzarella, on behalf of the Leominster Public Library, I'm requesting a transfer of $50,000 from the library's state aid to public library's budget to the library's operating account. And it gives the account number. This planned transfer will allow the library to meet its materials expenditure requirement as set by the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners. If you have any questions regarding the request, please do not hesitate to contact me. And that's signed by Alexander Lent. It would be my position, Mr. President, to grant this appropriation. I'd ask you to check with members of my committee.
Councilor Angelini?
Make it unanimous, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor. You heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-49. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-49, please recognize the usual manner. By a vote of 8-0, C-49 has been granted. Does the chairwoman have an order?
I do, Mr. President. Order that the appropriation of $50,000 be made to the library's operating account, the same amount to be transferred from the library's state aid to the public library account. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the order, please say yay.
Yay.
Anyone opposed? The order is adopted by a vote of 8-0. Moving on to C-50.
C-50, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that an appropriation of $15,000 be transferred from the library's personnel budget to the library's operating budget. This was given regular course on March 25th. I have another letter from Alexander Lent at the Leominster Public Library. He's requesting a transfer of $15,000 from the library's personnel budget to the library's operating budget. This would be $15,000 from, and it has the account number, and part-time the account number building and grounds. This transfer will allow the library to finalize its security camera project adding cameras to the third floor and to the audio-visual collection area, and integrating key cameras from the library's old camera system onto its new camera system. Again, if you have any questions, please reach out to Alexander Lent. It would be my position to grant this appropriation. I'd ask you to check with members of my committee.
Councilor Angelini? Very well. You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-50. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-50, please recognize in the usual manner. Anybody opposed? By a vote of 8-0, C-50 has been granted. Does the chairwoman have an order?
I do, Mr. President. Order the appropriation of $15,000 be transferred from the library's personnel budget to the library's budget. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order, or is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the order, please indicate by saying yay. Yay. Anyone opposed? By a vote of 8-0, the order has been adopted. Moving on to C-55.
Thank you, Mr. President. C-55, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests an appropriation of $250,000 be made to the Fire Department Public Safety Overtime Account, the same amount to be transferred from the Excess and Deficiency Account. This was given regular course on March 25th. We received communications from the Leominster Fire Department dated March 21st, 2024, to Dean J. Mazzarella. Dear Mayor Mazzarella, the fire department requests the sum of $250,000 for overtime costs. I am requesting the amount to be transferred at the discretion of the Comptroller's Office. My department's overtime spent to date is related to normal contract obligations, 2 members requiring duty injury coverage, 1 vacancy, a new hire in process, military activation, drills, recalls for residential fires, and mutual aid. Overtime funds needed for the remainder of this fiscal year will be used for the above, along with normal vacancies caused by sickness, personal, and vacation leave. Thank you for your continued support. And this is signed by Chief Robert Sidlow. It would be my position, Mr. President, to grant C-55, and I'd ask that you check with members of my committee.
Councilor Angelini? Very well. You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-55. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-55, please recognize in the usual manner. Anyone opposed? By a vote of 8-0, C-55 has been granted. Does the chairwoman have an order?
I do, Mr. President. Order an appropriation of $250,000 be made to the Fire Department Public Safety Overtime Account, the same amount to be transferred from the Excess and Deficiency Account. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the order, please say yay. Yay. Anyone opposed? The order is adopted by a vote of 8-0. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, for pitching in. You did a wonderful job. Moving on to legal affairs. Is the chairman ready to report?
Indeed, Mr. President. Thank you. Petition 25-24. Peter A. Angelini, Ward 5 Councilor, requests to revise the amended Leominster City Ordinance by inserting a new section regarding short-term rental units. See attached. Mr. Chairman, President, as you're aware, we had a public hearing this evening, and as I raised during that public hearing, we received another opinion from our attorney, Brian Riley, late Thursday afternoon. I do understand the opinion quite well. However, it raised some issues that I believe need a little bit more explanation and may require additional correspondence with Attorney Riley. For that reason, I am requesting further time, and I would ask you to check with members of my.
Councilor Cormier.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would agree to further time. I will admit, I will confess that I need to read it over again. I had a couple of questions after I read it the first time, so I would be looking for further time as well.
Very well. And Councilor Cormier? Sorry, Councilor Tossi.
I'm in agreement.
All right. So the unanimous recommendation of legal affairs would be to give 25-24 further time, and we have a suggested continued public hearing date of April 22nd at 6:50 p.m. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Frida.
First of all, just looking at the correspondence, it did come in 4 o'clock on Wednesday, and it was time stamped by the clerk 9 o'clock in the morning on Thursday. So that was all day Thursday. I mean, this is good for KP Law. Usually we don't get anything until 4 o'clock the day of our meeting. So, I mean, that was 2 full days to question what they said, plus all day today. So I don't know why we've had opinions. We're getting phone calls. I'm getting phone calls. I don't know if anybody else is. That we don't seem to have a problem in the city. And why are we pushing this short-term rental? And why do we keep giving it further time? Why don't we just have the discussion? Did we change? Do we know that it's a 2/3 vote? Do we know that this is a zoning issue? That seems to be pretty well established in the opinion. Or is that something that
Question you're asking me?
I'm asking anybody that wants to answer the question, because we don't.
I think if you look at the opinion, it would be suggested that at least a portion of the petition speaks to zoning, and a portion of the petition speaks to non-zoning issues. It is clear that a zoning petition requires a supermajority vote. It's also clear that the general ordinance would require only a majority vote. So there's at least work to be done here, if not questions to be answered about just how to proceed with this, because it's really a mix of the two. So that's what's before us. Councilor Angelini?
Mr. President, I think for the record, it should be noted that I have not sought one legal opinion. I haven't been the generator of legal opinions. Others on the council have requested them. I'm merely trying to understand them completely. And when researching this, it brings up more questions the deeper I go. So before I go off and ask for an opinion, my first one in this matter, I want to make sure that I have pertinent questions cited in statutory law that I can refer to when I make a request to Attorney Riley. It makes perfect sense to me. And again, I haven't asked for an opinion yet in this. Others have, and that's dragged us on quite some time. So to sort of ask me why it's been going on as long as it has, I think the question should be directed at some others. So,
Anybody else have anything, comments? Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Through the chair to the Legal Affairs Chair. You know, the other petition that was submitted, earlier this evening, that's a zoning petition, I mean, makes this really seem redundant. So why wouldn't this one just be given leave to withdraw, and then we proceed ahead on the one that really proposes to change the zoning in Residence A? It seems to me like this,
well,
it's redundant.
I can't speak on the petition. It was first time on our calendar this evening. You know the rules. So this is the way I choose to proceed, and I'll put it to a vote. That's all.
Anybody else? Councilor Frida?
There's got to be a reason why we keep putting this, and I'm not sure who else. I'm not going to. I can speak for myself that I haven't asked for opinions from KP Law. I'm not sure who else, if you didn't as the chair, who else would have asked for opinions from KP Law. We have a lot of them, so somebody's asking for them.
Well, let's be specific. Let's not talk about innuendo. There was an ethics question. I have the floor. I'm answering your question. You asked a question. That's what you did. So I'm going to answer your question now. There was a question raised about the ethics of this petition, and particularly some of us, or most of us, I think all but one of us, live in Residence A. There was a question about whether we could ethically proceed based on information that 2 of our councilors received from the Ethics Commission. We fleshed that out as a result of a meeting. That information was requested of Councilor Riley. It was answered eventually. There was also a question from this body during an open debate as to whether this was a zoning petition or a general ordinance. We asked Councilor Riley that question. There was also a case that came up versus the city of Linfield that was brought before this body in general. We gave that to Councilor Riley. That was answered. Councilor brought a question up about a case from Nantucket, which was sent to Councilor Riley. That was answered. So they specifically answered why all these opinions are being raised. They're valid issues that needed to be addressed, and Councilor Riley has addressed them in a pretty efficient manner. But here we are. We have a new opinion that sort of splits the baby of this petition into zoning and general ordinance. And I think it's quite appropriate to tread carefully and make sure we're doing the right thing at all instances.
We seem to have issues with comments that aren't supportive of this petition. We've had a building inspector, we've had the health department. They had questions about their ability. The building inspector felt pretty firmly that he had the ability to deal with something if an issue came up. I've been on the council for 30 years, and when this first came to the council, I looked at it and I said, geez, there are some areas, some communities that are initiating short-term rentals. I started looking at it because I had no opinion one way or the other. But then when we started talking about one specific house, one specific property in the city.
Who's we? No, I don't think we are speaking about one particular house. That doesn't matter. They're citizens and they have.
Councilor from Ward 5 who has said more than once he had two constituents sit here and he wanted to deal immediately because they were.
Those constituents came here and addressed the council, which they have the right to do.
Absolutely.
And by the way, Councilor, right now we're debating further time. We're not debating the petition. Okay. So why don't you keep your comments confirmed to the question of further time?
To talk about this, are we, Mr. President? We're just not going to be able to talk about the point that this is on the agenda. We have one house. We have one issue that we've been dealing with. We have a number of people. There are a number of people in Ward 2 that have called.
That's your opinion. That's your opinion.
And
okay?
I'm allowed as a councilor to put it on the table.
You've done that. Are you finished?
Not completely, I haven't, because
right,
you seem
finish,
to just
please.
interfere and stop me.
Finish, please.
Yeah.
We're debating further time. Finish your opinion.
No, you know what? I'll just wait and I'll have my opportunity. I mean, it's really sad that we can't have an honest discussion. We've got, I'd be interested in see how much money we spent on KP Law at this point. I asked for one opinion from our attorney for the council. And I was told we're not going to spend money for our counselor because our attorney, because we have KP Law.
You can continue to mix and mash your opinions that have nothing to do with what we're debating as you see fit. But it's inappropriate in my mind to make those comments. Okay? It's
always inappropriate when I make a comment because it's not in line with what your opinion is. I mean, it's very clear. I mean, should we, and I'll get ready for you to just come right after me, but should we mention the fact that the couple that sat here with a real problem that the Ward 5 councilor is trying to address because it's his constituent, it's also he abuts the property. And I'm sure you're going to say that's not relevant and I shouldn't be bringing it up. I'm sure that's going to be the next comment you're going to make.
You can bring that up. You can bring that up when we debate the petition again.
Okay. All right. We'll just wait again. And then maybe the whole council will be here, so we have a better shot at the 2/3 vote. So yes, I'm done. Thank you.
Anybody else? Councilor Shalfo.
This is a comment. We are debating further time, and this has been on, the calendar since December. So the specific problem that this seemed to be poised to fix has been resolved. The building inspector, who claimed, certainly at a public hearing and certainly to me, that he had the authority based on what was in the existing zoning ordinance to enforce a commercial use in Residence A, as a violation. He's done that. He's reached out to the homeowners who are using that property as a commercial property and has told them that they are in violation of the city ordinance and that, further action would be taken if they continued to rent that home as a short-term rental. So the problem from my perspective has really been addressed and solved. That's the only complaint in my 15 years, I guess, on the council. So the question of further time is, does it really make sense to give this further time, given that from my perspective, the situation has been addressed? And we can certainly, we have something new on the calendar. We can't debate that this evening, but that would be something certainly that is more targeted, I think more specific and more manageable. So that's, further time, for this, it's been on here since, December 11th. So I think it's time to move it along.
Councilor Arninger?
When I read the opinion today, I was actually pieces of information coming back and forth. I think if I were to be asked to address this tonight, I could not, in all fairness, address it tonight because I am puzzled, to be honest with you. A counselor talked about the building inspector, saying he had the authority to do that. I wasn't aware that he already done something, but he also said when he was here that he didn't think he had the time to push that ordinance. I think we'd have to go back in the notes, but pretty sure he said he didn't have the time to do this, or the staff to do it. So
Let me
I think we have to.
let me clarify something about the opinion. The opinion that we last sought from the attorney was relative to case law decided in the Massachusetts courts. And generally, the courts determine that you can't have a short-term rental in a Residence A zone. However, it's dependent upon the actual ordinance or bylaw of the community involved. That was decided in that Nantucket case. We have an ordinance in this city that doesn't specifically say, like some communities, that anything not permitted in the table of uses is automatically prohibited. We don't have that in this community. So because of our particular ordinance, I think what Councilor Riley was trying to indicate is it might be a better tool in the toolbox to have potentially a prohibition against short-term rentals in the Residence A zone because of the way our particular ordinance is set up. So to suggest that this problem has been solved because the building inspector came here and said you can't do it isn't exactly so. This is tricky stuff. This gets very deep into the case law from the Supreme Judicial Court. And I think, Councilor Angelini presented it as something to take a look at. I don't think that's unwise, but we all have the right to vote on this. What's before us is further time. You want to vote against further time? Vote against further time. But that's what's before us. Anything further? Councilor Chalmers.
Yep. Just to clarify, the building inspector, what he said is that if it's not in the zoning ordinance, it's not allowed. And I've read that somewhere. I was just looking for it in Brian Riley's, voluminous materials here, and I did not find that. But that's what he said. And that's what he acted upon. If it's not permitted in the zoning ordinance, it is not allowed.
That's not that simple.
Well,
I don't care what he says. It's not that simple.
Well, he's the enforcement person.
I
so.
understand, but the bottom line is that there's case law out there that says that some communities have a provision that says it just that. If it's not in our ordinance, it's not allowed. We don't have that provision on our books. Maybe we should have that, but we don't. Councilor Frida.
We're forgetting that we also have an opinion from the planning board who listened to the petitioner's presentation, had a discussion, and after 2 meetings, sent a very clear letter as to why they're opposed to this petition as well. I would think they know a little bit about zoning, I would hope.
I would hope.
I would hope.
Actually, Mr. President, I really didn't want to make this statement, but at that meeting that the at-large councilor just mentioned, one of the planning board members asked me, why don't we just ban it in the entire city? And apparently that member of the planning board isn't aware that we have adult entertainment districts in our zoning, not because we want them, because the courts have ruled you just can't arbitrarily ban something. So, and that sort of leads us back into this.
If we're discussing first, point of order, Mr. President.
Excuse me.
There's a point of order.
Go ahead.
I think I was just corrected because we were talking about further time, so I had to keep my comments. Now we're talking about adult zoning. So I think we're really going off. What's good for one is good for all.
I've allowed a lot of latitude here. Does somebody want to move the question?
A lot of latitude is right.
Councilor Angelini, Councilor Arninger, any objection? We're going to move the question. All right. I'll do this by roll call. Councilor Pauline Cormier. For further time.
Yay.
Councilor Arninger.
Yay.
Councilor Angelini.
Yay.
Councilor Tossi.
Yay.
Councilor Chalfo Zephyr.
Nay.
Councilor Robbins.
Yay.
Councilor Frida.
Nay.
And I'll be recorded as yay. I believe that vote is 6-2 in favor of further time. And we'll establish a continued public hearing for April 22nd at 6:50 p.m. Moving on to 41-24. Councilor Angelini, you ready to report?
41-24, Mr. President. Officer Julio Ramos, Leominster Police Department, requests to amend Chapter 13 of the revised ordinance entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Chapter 13, Section 13-24 of the revised ordinance entitled No Parking on Certain Streets by inserting the following text: Church Street, west side, south of Miriam Avenue for 136 feet. Church Street, west side, starting from 248 feet south from Miriam Avenue, ending at the intersection of Church Street and West Street. See attached map. Mr. President, we conducted a public hearing early this evening, and unfortunately, the referral from the DPW didn't jive with the petition. And as we stated, that was the reason this petition happened in the first place, is because of comments made by the DPW. So we've asked that the parties get together, try to resolve this, so we find out exactly what the intentions of Officer Ramos are and the concerns of the DPW, and then we can address this hopefully at our next meeting. So at this time, I would be requesting that this be given further time, and I would ask you to poll members of my committee.
Councilor Pauline Cormier?
I agree.
Councilor Tossi?
I agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to grant 41-24 further time and establish a continued public hearing. Just let me finish and I'll recognize you. For April 22nd at 6:45 p.m. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr.
Thank you very much. I don't have an attached map. I don't think I've ever had a map that was attached that outlines this. So for the next meeting, could we please have a map of this? And then also my notes indicate that we referred it to the mayor and the DPW. So we got the DPW back, but nothing from the mayor. Okay. So if we could follow up with him. Thank you.
Okay, we'll make those two notes to the record. Councilor Frida.
Yeah, specific to this, but in pretty much a general practice, when there was a petition that was put into this council, we used to have the petitioner come into the council and speak to the petition, why they were actually asking for what they were asking for. Might be nice if we can start getting some of these department heads or anybody that puts a petition in to come to speak to it. That was always courtesy at one point, but we were able to ask the questions in a public hearing, you know, the petitioner. So a lot of this might have been resolved. I don't disagree with further time on this one because we don't know. But
Would you like us to invite Officer Ramos down specifically?
well, I don't know if we need to do it now. That's up to the chair. But I think a lot of these questions that we keep coming up with are petitioners that don't come in when they put a petition in, and we don't have the answers, and it goes back and forth 2, 3, 4 times without having the petitioner come before us.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure, let's invite Officer Ramos down.
May I invite Officer Ramos or anybody else Chief Kennedy approves? Because I don't know their union stuff. Okay.
All right, any other discussion? Any other discussion? All those in favor of further time in a continued public hearing for April 27th, 6:45, please recognize usual manner. Anyone opposed? 41-24 has been given further time with a new public hearing date of April 22nd at 6:45 p.m. Moving on to Ways and Means and C-53. Is the chairwoman ready to report?
I am, Mr. President. Mr. President, C-53 Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests the appointment of the following: Council on Aging, term to expire April 15, 2027, Karen Bask of Laurie Drive here in Leominster. Ms. Bask was unable to make it to an interview this evening, but she did send in a letter which includes a lot of background, and it looks like this is something that she is already very involved in. It's been volunteering for a significant amount of time. It almost feels like a reappointment. So it would be my recommendation, Mr. President, that we appoint Karen Bass to the Council on Aging, and I would ask you to check with members of my committee.
Council Oettinger? You've heard the unanimous recommendation to confirm the appointment of Karen Bask. Is there any discussion? Council Frida?
Yes, I do support Karen Bask. She goes way back when she was a member of the school committee, and I think she'd do a great job. But just to keep for, we ask others to come. It's important for the public to see these people that are serving. Maybe we could ask her to come in. I'm not going to ask to hold up the vote tonight, but if we could just ask her to still come in and meet with us.
We can send out that invitation, certainly.
Anything else? All right, this will be by roll call, starting with Council Pauline Cormier,
Yay.
Council Ardinger,
Yay.
Council Angelini,
Yay.
Council Tossi,
Yay.
Council Shalfo Zephyr,
Yay.
Council Robbins,
Yay.
and Council Frida.
Yay.
And I'll be recorded as yay. The appointment, the confirmation of Karen Bask has been approved by a vote of 8-0. Moving on to the second portion of that communication, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Mr. President. This evening, we had the opportunity to interview Laura Moust for the Disability Commission with a term to expire on April 15th of 2027. Miss Laura was in here today. She's very personable, very involved, and she wants to get involved with the city. She was very forthcoming with her own contact with disabilities within her own family. I think she would be a great addition to the Disability Commission, and I would ask that we grant the appointment. And I'd ask you to check with members of my committee.
Council Ardinger. Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of Ways and Means to confirm the appointment of Laura Rose Most. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, this will be by roll call. Council Cormier,
Yay.
Council Ardinger,
Yay.
Council Angelini,
Yay.
Council Tossi,
Yay.
Council Shalfo Zephyr,
Yay.
Council Robbins,
Yay.
Council Frida.
Yay.
That shall be recorded as yay. That by a vote of 8-0, the appointment of Laura Rose Mouse to the Disability Commission has been confirmed. Madam Chairwoman, are you ready to proceed with C-54?
I am, Mr. President. I do have a procedural question. Apparently, I was not here on the last date, and apparently it was brought to the attention that some of the addresses on these reappointments were incorrect. We did receive, and I was given this evening, a copy of the updated addresses on 5 of the applicants for reappointment. I can read these through. It would be my intention, Mr. President, to, as I read them through, to correct the address with our updated list of addresses.
Might you propose an amendment to change the addresses that are affected, as well as to strike the reappointment of Betty David, who I think sent in a letter declining her service? Maybe you could take all those together and we can get a second on that motion to amend. We can vote.
I would make that motion
All right.
specifically.
Do you want to read out should we read the addresses out just for the record? Or the correct addresses for the particular appointment?
I can do that. So under Patrick Lapointe, under the Historical Commission, the address should read 16 Brooks Pond Road, number 205 in Leominster, Mass. Under the same Historical Commission, Ronald Gerard, the address should read 140 Adams Street, number 404, Leominster, Mass. Under the Recreation Commission, Thomas Bissonette, the correct address should read 59 Long Hill Drive, Leominster, Mass. And again, under the Recreation Commission, Jeffrey O'Neill should read 156 Lindell Avenue, Leominster, Mass. And as the Forest Warden, Paul Kennedy, the address should read 26 Elm Street, Leominster, Mass.
And along with that, we're going to strike Betty Davis as
Under-
a reappointment.
Yes.
Okay, do I have a second on that motion? Council Robbins, any discussion? All those in favor of the amendment, please recognize usual manner. Okay, the petition is amended. Could you proceed? Do you want to, can we proceed with this in block? All right, before we do that though, I am going to recuse myself from my own appointment under the Library Board of Trustees, specifically. And I'll ask you for your recommendation in block.
Thank you, Mr. President. C-54, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests the reappointment of the following to the Board of Appeals. Term to expire April 15th, 2027, Nicholas Preville of 127 Spruce Street in Leominster. To the Conservation Commission, term to expire April 15th, 2027, Michael Sishi, 270 Hill Street, Leominster. Richard Gulick, 151 Old Farm Road in Leominster. Charles Raymond, 86 Pierce Street in Leominster. On the Council of Aging, terms to expire April 15th, 2027. At Adriana Fatakis, 97 Lindell Ave, and I apologize because I'm butchering so many names. Larry Giannakis, Sr., 147 Grant Street, Leominster. To the Historical Commission, terms to expire April 15th, 2027. Michael Kerrigan, 43 Hamilton Street. Patrick LaPointe of 16 Brooks Pond Road. Ronald Gerard of 140 Adams Street. To the Library Board of Trustees, terms to expire April 15th, 2027. Mark Bedanza of 23 Kendall Hill Road. And Lawrence Nafor of 69 Sharamar Drive, Leominster. To the Recreation Commission, terms to expire April 15th, 2027. Thomas Bissonette of 59 Long Hill Drive. Maureen Donatelli, 173 Lindell Ave. Jeffrey O'Neill, 156 Lindell Ave. And Douglas Cormier of 1139 Elm Street. Forest Warden, term to expire April 15th, 2027, Paul Kennedy of 26 Elm Street. Mr. President, I would ask that we grant the reappointment of all of the listed appointees, and I'd ask you to check with members of my committee.
Councilor Ottinger? You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Ways and Means Committee to grant or to confirm the appointments listed under C-54. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Frida?
Not really a discussion, just to thank the clerk for getting all these addresses correct. I think it's important. Someone goes in to ask a question, they know how to get in touch with someone.
Good. Okay. Anything else? We'll do this by roll call as well. Councilor Pauline Cormier?
Yay.
Councilor Ottinger?
Yay.
Councilor Angelini?
Yay.
Councilor Tossi?
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Yay.
Councilor Robbins?
Yay.
Councilor Frida?
Yay.
And I would be recorded as yay by a vote of 8-0 in the case of all except for me. The appointments have been confirmed. Moving on to C-56, is the chairwoman ready to report?
I am, Mr. President, with one question, Mr. President. This was in a communication that was sent under a suspension of the rules. As I was not here on the last date, was that granted or does that need to be addressed? So that was okay. Thank you. C-56, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, request to authorize the mayor to pursue a grant through the Massachusetts Vulnerability Preparedness Program, MVP, to resolve flooding in the Burridge Avenue and Muskoma Avenue area. This was given regular course on 3/25/2024. We received a letter from the mayor's office to the city council members. Dear members of the city council, I'm asking your support of a grant application to the Massachusetts Vulnerability Preparedness Program, MVP. As you know, the Burridge Avenue, Muskoma Avenue area has experienced flooding for a number of years. Although the city has made an effort to upgrade neighborhood drainage in the past, the system requires an in-depth design. Recently, the state's MVP program has increased the maximum amount available per project, making the program an excellent match to resolve the issues in the Burridge Avenue area. In April, we would first apply for phase 1 of the grant, which would pay for the design and permitting of the project. We would then be eligible to apply for construction funds. I would appreciate the council's endorsement of moving forward with this grant application. Mr. President, it would be my position to authorize the mayor to pursue this grant, and I'd ask you to confirm that with members of my committee.
Very well. Councilor Ottinger? Okay, you heard the unanimous recommendation of the Ways and Means Committee to grant C-56. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Angelini?
Thank you, Mr. President. kind of funny. I ran into the mayor today, and he mentioned this to me, and he said that the Ward 1 Council has been tenacious in its pursuit of funding for the neighbors impacted on Burridge Ave in that area. Said it seems like every time he looks up or walks in his office, Councilor Tossi's in there asking Wendy if she found any grant money. So I just wanted to tip my hat for your constituent service. You certainly seem to be a natural for that, Councilor. And like to obviously recognize the mayor and the grant administrator, Wendy Weeks, for locating and supporting this grant. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor Tossi?
Yes, thank you, Councilor Angelini. I can't really take any credit for this. This is all the work of the mayor and Wendy Weeks. They've done all the heavy lifting for this. I can just hopefully help out when needed and just convey information when required. And very excited for this opportunity for this grant for the people of Burridge Ave area.
Thank you, Councilor Tossi. Anybody else? Councilor Frida?
Just a note, I think it's great, and this is something that we've all heard about, especially the at-large council, is over the years with that area. We know it needs to be addressed. I hope this is the beginning of more of the MVP grants in the future, because I know there were people in the Miriam Ave area that have called me with a lot of issues, Smith Street, a lot of the area around the Doyle Commission sites. So hopefully it's the beginning of something to get some of these issues corrected. The storm we had, certainly nothing will correct that, but just for future protection, hopefully some of these issues can be resolved.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Thank you very much. No, I think this is another good step in the right direction. I mean, we've taken action over on the Pleasant Street area for that house that, is no longer inhabitable, and hopefully are going to help, resolve some of the issues that the condominium owners have behind that. That's a good step. This Mascoma and Burridge Ave, I have heard about it for years. It's a terrible, it's probably the worst flooded, area in the city. So that's another good step in the right direction. But to Councilor Frida's point, I hear from people on Merriam Avenue all the time. Merriam Avenue, Smith Street, up and down, the other side on Lindell. So this is, very important stuff that we're doing. The mayor's doing a good job. This is great. We just need to continue and make sure that we address all of the cities that were so badly impacted, by that flood. So I'll be looking for, another project to come before us and hopefully to address that, Merriam Avenue area.
Thank you, Councilor. Anybody else? Okay. All those in favor of granting C56, please recognize usual manner. Anyone opposed? By a vote of 8-0, C56 has been granted. Moving on to C51.
Thank you, Mr. President. C51, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests the City Council approve the addition of Ray Racine to the membership of the School Building Committee for Fallbrook Elementary School. We did receive a letter from the mayor's office, basically asking us to approve the addition of Mr. Racine to the membership of the School Building Committee. It sounds like that would be a reasonable appointment, and I would support adding Mr. Racine to that, and I'd ask you to check with members of my committee.
Councilor Hardinger? You heard the unanimous recommendation to grant C51. Is there any discussion? Before we vote, I would just like to publicly disclose that both myself and Councilor Angelini are actually members of this building authority, as well as Councilor Robbins. Sorry. I don't think that precludes us from voting for these two communications, but I just wanted to disclose that for the record. That being said, any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C51, please recognize usual manner. Anyone opposed? By a vote of 8-0, C51 has been granted. Moving on to C52.
Thank you, Mr. President. C52, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests the City Council vote to remove James Whitney and Gregory Thomas from the School Building Committee for Fallbrook Elementary School. It reports that as a result of their other commitments, they are no longer able to serve on the committee. It would be my position to grant C-52, and I'd ask you to check with members of my committee.
Councilor Ottinger?
I agree.
Okay, all those in favor of, you heard the unanimous recommendation of the Ways and Means Committee to grant C-52. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-52, please recognize the usual manner. Vote of 8-0, C-52 has been granted. There is no new business before us. Moving on to old business, we have the second reading of an ordinance, formally 30-24. Is the chairman ready to report?
I am indeed, Mr. President. Thank you. Yes, indeed. This is formally petition 30-24. Peter Nile, Building Commissioner, requests to update a plumbing permit fee schedule. In the year 2024, an ordinance be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Leominster as follows, amending Chapter 4 of the revised ordinances entitled Buildings. Chapter 4 of the revised ordinances entitled Building is hereby amended by deleting Section 4-2 entitled Gas Piping Installations and Appliance Fees in its entirety, and by inserting in its place the following text. Plumbing and gas permit fees, new construction. New construction consists of new single-family and two-family houses, additions, and indirect installations, i.e. gas to electric, gas to combination, etc. Plumbing, basic $50 plus $6 per fixture. Gas, basic $50 plus $6 per appliance. Commercial buildings and industrial. Plumbing, basic $75 plus $10 per fixture. Gas, basic $75 plus $10 per appliance. Replacements or remodeling, repairs, renovations, alterations. Single and two family. Plumbing, basic $35 plus $6 per fixture. Gas, basic $35 plus $6 per appliance. Commercial buildings, plumbing, basic $55 plus $8 per fixture. Gas, basic $55 plus $8 per appliance. Reinspection, $50 per inspection. Written opinion, $30. Inspections related to written opinion, $30. Interpretations of fees. All interpretations of the attached fee structure will be made by the appropriate division director or the Division of Code Enforcement. The interpretation of the director will be final. Any fee for an item not specifically listed in the manual will be determined by the division director and will be in official interpretation. Working or operating without permits. Any contractor, owner, lessee, or operator failing to obtain a required permit in accordance with applicable law, ordinances, or regulations will be subject to a $100 surcharge. This surcharge will cover additional department costs incurred in addition to the normal fee. Inspection. All inspections are by personnel appointment only. Important notice, there shall be absolutely no inspection scheduled via notes on my desk, words already written on the permit application, verbal requests from the secretary, other inspectors, homeowners, or other contractors. Please contact me at 978-962-3567 or fax 978-840-0039. Penalty for work that is started before the permit is issued, the fee shall be double. Mr. President, it would be my recommendation that we adopt formally the second reading of this ordinance, and I would ask you to check with members.
Councilor Cormier? Councilor Tosi?
I agree.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to adopt the second reading of the ordinance, formally 30-24. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, this will be by roll call, starting with Councilor Cormier, Councilor Arninger, Councilor Angelini,
Yay.
Councilor Tosi,
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr,
Yay.
Councilor Robbins,
Yay.
Councilor Frida,
Yay.
and I shall be recorded as yay. The second reading of the ordinance is adopted by a vote of 8-0. Any additional old business? Councilor Angelini?
Thank you, Mr. President. As we all know, we were given some photos of some of the damage that was done during the flood back in September. And also, I put on notice a few weeks ago that the mayor had appealed the decision by the Biden administration to deny the city of Leominster disaster relief. And in the meantime, we've had in Washington, D.C., a continuing resolution, and that's simply a fancy term for a way to give a short-term budget to keep the federal government open until they can hammer out a budget deal, which they did recently. But that continuing resolution was about a month ago. And before it passed, everyone on the Hill knew that it was going to pass because no one had the stomach to shut the government down. And along with that legislation, that continuing resolution, we're over $1 billion in earmarks. Now, earmarks are little special projects that congressmen put on there because they know it's going to pass and they bring that money back to their district. Well, I reviewed every one of those earmarks. And unfortunately, there was nothing in there for Leominster. Nothing. And then we recently passed a $1.3 trillion omnibus budget, and that was full of earmarks as well. There wasn't a penny in there for the city of Leominster. But I should say that our congressman, Jim McGovern, he was busy at the time. And so don't take my word for it. Let me quote, and I will provide this to the clerk. This is from the Hill, certainly no right-wing publication. It's dated March 13th, 2024. It was written by a gentleman named Mike Lillis. It says, House Democrats on Tuesday formally launched their promised effort to force a vote on Ukraine aid, a long-shot bid to compel the legislature to the floor over the objection of the Republican leader who controls the chamber. Sponsored by Representative Jim McGovern, Democrat, Massachusetts, ranking member of the House Rules Committee, the Democrat discharge petition would require 218 signatures to force consideration of the Senate-passed foreign aid package, which provides $95 billion for Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, and humanitarian assistance for Gaza. Mr. President, people in this community have been suffering since that flood. There's been ample opportunities to provide funding to help take some of the pressure off of these poor people and replace, and some of this infrastructure in our community has been damaged and threatens to blow a hole in our budget. So I would ask, those of us who are paying attention recognize there have been several opportunities that have been missed. And I would hope that our congressional delegation starts taking a look at us. Bring some money to district. I just got done paying my federal tax obligation a couple of days ago, like I'm sure many others have. I'd like to see some of that money come back from Washington rather than leaving the country and go into foreign countries. And we're looking for a mere $25, $30 million. That's chump change. These guys are talking $95 billion foreign aid. So I would hope that people will get busy and contact our senators and our congressmen and urge them to represent the people in this district, put us first. And, you know, charity starts at home, as they say. This isn't charity. This is disaster relief. Our dollars been used in the past to help others that have experienced disaster. And I would hope that our delegation puts pressure on the Biden administration to reconsider the disaster declaration and fund it, or find other creative ways, such as earmarks, to get us the money we need to preserve our budget and to help people in this community in need. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Councilor Angelini. Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Thank you very much. As I think lots of people know, the mayor, working very closely with Governor Maura Healey, Senator Elizabeth Warren, and Senator Markey, has appealed the denial to FEMA and has requested that the administration reverses their denial. So the city, in the form of the mayor, is working very closely with the federal delegation, our federal delegation, to make sure that the city does, in fact, get a fair hearing at FEMA so that the folks, local people that we all know, will get some disaster relief. So it's being worked on very hard as we speak. And the mayor would be the first person to tell any one of you how closely he has worked with our federal delegation and also our governor. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Councilor. Any other old business? Councilor Frida?
Don't have any old business, but I just want to commend you, your comment about latitude, because this really was an old business, but that got through okay, not a problem.
Do you have anything on the community calendar? Yes.
I do.
Okay.
Just a reminder, we got a notice for April 21st at the library an Armenian genocide remembrance. I know we have a number of Armenians in our communities. My best friend is Armenian, and her family suffered with the family members suffered in the genocide. I've listened to their stories for many, many years. Sally Cragen, who has put this together, counselor from Pittsburgh, is also Armenian. I've been the last 3 or 4 years that they've done this, and it's really a very moving program. So I would encourage anyone who's interested in the Armenian genocide or who does have family member or is interested in the history of it. It's an important factor that we shouldn't forget.
Thank you for bringing that forward. That's a sad event in the history of the world that sometimes is not recognized as much as it should be. Is there anything else under the community calendar? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Councilor Shalfo Zephyr, Councilor Arninger, second. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
The Leominster City Council meeting is funded in part by the Carolus Insurance Agency at www.thecarolisinsuranceagency.com and by Avidia Bank at www.avidiabank.com.